Welcome back to the channel, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. So Nightcrawler is one of these films that relatively go under the radar, or went under the radar when it first came out. Kind of like the movie Taken, if you've ever seen the movie Taken, with Liam Neeson or Nielsen. Kind of a movie that went under the radar, that didn't get a lot of publicity, but it's a hidden gem and I highly recommend it. Nightcrawler is pretty much a critique of how modern corporate, I guess, or capitalistic nations operate. How it's pretty much just about the profit, the money, right? And not about nurturing or taking care of human relationships, right? So a lot of nefarious stuff can result from such a system. A lot of evil practices and I guess evil people in general arise from having a system that only cares about money and not so much as, the individual or the human being. But in this video, I'm just going to be talking about the three things that stood out to me from this film. And that's the idea or the theme of salesmanship, self-education, and having ambition. So if you're familiar with the film, you know that Lou is not the ideal character. And by ideal, I mean in terms of morality and in terms of values, right? There's a lot of great positive characteristics to his character that, we can learn from regardless. A very wise person once told me that, even from, the person that you think you can't learn something from, you actually could. You can always learn something from somebody. And Lou Bloom, right? Even though he's a fictional character in a film, we can still take away something from his character. So like I said, if you're familiar with the film, you know that this guy isn't the best of people. He pretty much does anything to get to the top. He doesn't care about other people's emotions. He's a psychopath. Pretty much it's established that he's a sociopath or a psychopath, right? And he pretty much does anything to get ahead, right? Something that is obviously not morally correct. But at the end of the day, like I said, there's a lot of things we can take away from his character. The first one is the salesmanship that he is constantly exhibiting, right? It's part of his character. He's always trying to figure out creative ways to sell his services, to sell his skills, and to just sell who he is. There's a lot of times in the film where he is pretty much turned down, right? But he, whether it be by a prospective client or employer or by a person, but he always figures out a way to get what he wants, right? The means as to how he goes about that, again, is not correct in my opinion. But in some instances, he's always able to figure out a way to make it work, right? So that's the first thing that we can take away from his character, the ability that he has to sell his skills, to sell his character, and to ultimately achieve the goals that he has for himself, right? Like, so there's this scene in the beginning of the movie, right, where he's pretty much just scrounging around for any loose change that he can, for any money that he can get going to, fund his next business venture. He's out here, again, trying to recycle materials that he got. And he's, not taking the initial offer that the guy gives him for it, right? He's always trying to just improve the offer that he puts on the table and ultimately, again, just get what he wants. Another time is where he's talking to Nina, right? And he's trying to sell the footage that he filmed. And he doesn't act in desperation, even though he does have a need for money, obviously. He's not in a pretty dire situation, but, he's just trying to improve his situation overall. And he's negotiating with Nina, but he never exhibits any sort of desperation or just, I guess, neediness in trying to sell his product, right? He's always cool, calm, and collected. And he knows that if it doesn't work out with that employer, then it's always going to work out with another one, right? But he never settles for less, which is, a character trait that I think we can get away from his character, right? How many of us settle for less? How many of us just settle for good enough, right? We think that there's no abundance out in the world. We think that if it doesn't work out with one particular, in one particular instance or scenario, it's not going to work out at all. And a lot of the times we're operating with this fear-based mindset, right? Instead of thinking, you know what, there's a lot of great opportunity out there. There's a lot of great, just great opportunity all around me. I don't need to settle for less. So again, that's one of the first key characteristics that we can take away from his character. Character trait number 2, or lesson number 2, that we can take away from this film is the act of self-education. We think that the only way for us to get ahead, the only way for us to get quote unquote educated is by doing it officially, right? We think that going to school, spending X amount of years at school is going to somehow make us educated. But educated is a lifelong process, right? And it doesn't need to take place particularly in an institution like university, right? Or public schooling, for example. I think this is a kind of a brainwashing tool that's instilling us, or a brainwashing just idea that's instilling us very early on that, education and enlightenment, I guess, is outside of us, that we have to go somewhere else to get it. And while that is partially true, the point I'm trying to make is that you don't specifically need to go to these institutions or learn from an established institution for yourself to be considered educated, right? Education can be, self-education. I think the term is called autodidactism, where you learn on your own, right? And like I said, it's a lifelong process. You can learn anywhere now with the creation of the internet, right? Information is more available than ever before. Of course, there's a lot of things that we need to worry about as a result of that, right? There's a lot of scam artists, a lot of misinformation out there, but, the tools are at your disposal for the most part. So, again, Lou displays this characteristic brilliantly. He's pretty much just learning on the go, right? He doesn't know anything about film editing or just, the new profession that he finds himself in, but he uses the tools that he has at his disposal and he figures out a way to make it work, right? He doesn't have the best camera equipment at the beginning of the film. He pretty much has a camcorder that, he bartered or that he traded for, a bike that he stole early on in the film. But again, it's just the baby steps, the idea of just working with what you have and learning on the go. You don't have to have all the pieces together to get something started off the ground, right? As you learn, as you go, as time passes by, you'll develop your skills and you'll get better and better. And unfortunately, this is a crucial first step that a lot of people, fall into. They think that they need to have, again, the perfect plan. They need to have everything in order before they begin. But again, the opposite is true. You don't need all the pieces to fall into line. You don't need all the pieces of the puzzle, so to speak, to get started. And again, as the film progresses, Lou just gets better and better equipment with the success that he acquires along the way, right? So just start. And finally, if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. The last lesson that I got from this film is just having that general ambition to improve your situation and improve your, quality of life. Like I said, we should in no means be looking up to a character like Lou Bloom, but there are things that we can learn from his character nonetheless. And one of the things that really stood out for me, or to me, in this film is his ambition. He's always scrounging around, right? He's always looking for a way to get ahead, and he's always looking to improve on what he has already built. So he pretty much starts with nothing, and by the end of the film, he has his own company, right? He is able to, hire people for his new video production company, and he's pretty much the owner of it, right? And he has his own business going by the end of the film, and the viewer is left to imagine that it would only go up from there. Who knows? Maybe he has his own, TV station or something even bigger than that, along the line. But Lou's ambition is evident. He works with what he has, and he doesn't let a no stop him from trying to, meet his goals. He always has that fire to just improve his situation, right? All these examples are evident in the film. He gets better camera equipment. He gets a better mode of transportation, right? He gets a better car. He, is self-employed and ends up owning his own business by the end of the film. So, Lou's ambition is something that, we can take away from this film. Of course, there's a fine line between ambition and obsession, and Lou definitely crosses that line, and it's obviously not a healthy, normal thing to do. But again, we can take away the lessons nonetheless. If you made it this far in the video, hopefully something that I mentioned is of value to you or use to you. I hope you enjoyed this little short analysis I made of this film, or some of the themes in this film, Nightcrawler. I highly recommend it. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Thank you to all the subscribers of this channel. I'm sure that if you stick around, if you're new to the channel, you'll find something of value here. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you guys in the next one.